You're listening to the Downeast Mike podcast, the quirky little podcast from Maine. And now, your host, Downeast Mike. Good morning, everybody. This is Downeast Mike. You're listening to the Downeast Mike podcast, coming to you live from deep in the Downeast woods of Maine. Way down east, way beyond anything you can comprehend once you leave Portland area. This is Downeast Mike episode 84, news and commentary for April 15th, 2023. It's Saturday, all day long today. Our motto here on the Downeast Mike podcast is that some of it is whimsy, some of this is true, and the interpretation of it all is entirely up to you. And did you know that the Downeast Mike podcast contains no mean words, just wholesome goodness from Downeast Maine, a historical, literary, auditory candy store? And did you hear the bells on the door when you came in? That's a whole string of stuff I say at the beginning to get all limbered up so I can talk properly. In today's episode, we have Israel and Syria in a scuffle, of course. April 15th, 1974. The snow is 4 feet deep. On this day in 1885, we'll look into that a bit. The snow was deep in different areas across New England on this day in 1885. Mark Twain visits General Grant, Ulysses Grant. Do we know anybody named Ulysses today? That was in 1885. We have the illness of the instant yet again. That's nice to know. We're going to take a look at Maine's spring pond singer. And first, I guess we're going to go look at the headlines for today. If you're just getting up today on April 15th, used to be tax day. Now I think you can push it out until Tuesday if you want. Don't have to pay right away. They're happy to wait to get their money. Japanese Prime Minister is unheard after a blast during a campaign event. They always have such lame assassination attempts there. Somebody threw a pipe bomb at him and it didn't go off, and they rolled him off. Ron DeSantis got attacked at a stage event in New Hampshire, and they trundled off his protesters too. It actually looked like they were part of the show. They were paid to protest. Bud Light's parent company said it doesn't want to divide people in a statement following the controversy over its Dylan Mulvaney ordeal. Biden is leaving Ireland, or has already left. He tells the festive Irish crowd the U.S. and Ireland are deeply linked. I guess he stood in front of some castle or some building that his great-great-great-grandfather built not too long ago. U.S. intelligence knew of up to 4 more Chinese spy balloons. Mike Pence was booed during the NRA convention speech. They came for the boos there. Mike Pompeo announces his 2024 presidential decision. That'll do well. David's Bridal is going to lay off 82% of its 11,000 workers ahead of bankruptcy. Wonder who's going to fill the gap there. They sell those wedding dresses. Macron gets a boost as the court backs increase to retirement age. Won't be long, you won't be able to retire at all. Let's look at the Maine headlines. The report finds the Maine Film Office mismanaging the state's incentive program. We looked at that one a little bit. It's kind of interesting. They give money to film companies that come from out of state. They give like 5% kickback if you come to make a film in Maine. And then if you pay somebody money while you're making the film, they give you like 10% back. But the study found that they spend most of the money on out-of-state travel. I guess you got to promote it. Police alerted to letters sent to Maine lawmakers' homes. What else do we have in Maine? Maine Forest Service conducts controlled burns in Cape Elizabeth. Going to burn that grass off. Kind of a nice smell, burning off the grass in the spring. But they're worried about brush fires. Fast-moving fire destroys part of an oceanfront hotel in Ogunquit, Maine. See, that's what happens. Let's get to our podcast for today. That's what we're really into, the meaty stories. Oh, our illness of the instant. How timely. The illness for today is casual confusion. The casual confusion is an illness that impacts many Americans, and Mainers in particular. What's deceptive about casual confusion is that it may come and go throughout the day. If you're standing in line at Rennie's, you may have a moment of casual confusion where you're thinking, wait a minute, I was supposed to be at Tire Warehouse today picking up tires, and yet here I am at Rennie's buying blue jeans. That's casual confusion. So those are some of the symptoms that you may be standing somewhere like in the kitchen with a butter knife, but you really went out to get a steak knife to carve up your steak that you were eating on your lap as you're watching TV. That's casual confusion. That's one of the symptoms. And you should see your primary care physician about that. There is treatment available for casual confusion. It's available today. And by the way, nothing on the Downeast Mike podcast is to be construed as medical advice. See your primary care physician to get the real details on your treatment for casual confusion. We don't have a word of the day today. We'll get to that, though. Birthdays. We do have some birthdays today. Happy birthday to Dylan of Portland, who turns 1 year old. She's going to help her dad with a canning project this weekend, and he said he's even going to feature her picture on a can. Happy birthday, Dylan, 1 year old. Happy birthday to Orf of Norway, Maine today. Orf has been making cross-country skis for about 50 years. He sees no end in sight. Great job with those skis, Orf. Happy birthday. On this day in 1974, Israel was fighting with Syria. Seems like that's been going on forever. They fought hand-to-hand with Syrian forces on Sunday for the first time since the October War for control of strategic Mount Hermon. That's the hill they stand on. Both sides admitted taking heavy losses, with Israel saying it had suffered the highest number of casualties on the Golan Heights in a single day since the war. And then Syria said, you did this and we did that. But still going on back then. I had a story a little bit out of range here, but the Nova Scotia woods industry was mechanizing. The sound of mechanized cutting equipment is growing louder in Nova Scotia woodlands as industry gears up to meet the growing shortage of labor. And this is interesting because we heard an ad on the local radio for woodland training to do different jobs in the woods, everything from heavy equipment operators to chainsawing, etc. And it was paid internship or paid training, and they went on and on about it. I think it started in June, but that was a local radio ad that they were begging for people to go work in the woods today. And in 1974, they were having trouble getting labor. Faced with the disconcerting fact that fewer men are attracted to the lumber woods despite better pay and working conditions, Swedish-owned Nova Scotia Forest Industries has mechanized half its wood operations in the last year. It was done with the assistance of Swedish woodsmen who come here to train native workers and build up the company's diminishing wood supply. When they left recently after 7 months in Cape Breton and the mainland, the company reported it was beginning to attract younger men into the woods. The expansion of the company's huge plant here last year meant a requirement for more wood, and it planned to introduce highly mechanized logging systems and a continued high level of manual harvesting. However, as the company's need became greater, it faced a shortage of 150 to 250 men in the woods operations, mainly chainsaw operators. Who doesn't want to sling a chainsaw that weighs, 20 pounds with a 35-inch blade? Who doesn't want to sling that around all day in the woods? They go on and on about the amount of wood that they're pulling out of there. The spark of renewed interest among young men in woods operations noted by the company is comparable to the situation in Sweden 10 years ago, says Ackerson. Then there were insufficient woodsmen to supply the pulp and paper companies with wood. There was a stigma attached to being a woodsman. I felt that. Historian predicts hard times out of London. Historian Arnold Toynbee predicted Sunday that the fair enterprise system will disappear and that affluent nations will soon be living in what he called a permanent siege economy. Toynbee, who celebrated his 85th birthday on Easter Sunday, wrote in the Observer newspaper that those developments would stem from the plundering of the Earth's irreplaceable natural resources. Man's plundering of nature now threatens him with pollution and depiction. Toynbee wrote, in so-called developed countries like those of the Western U.S., Soviet Union, and Japan, growth is going to cease. They're going to find themselves in a permanent state of siege in which the material conditions of life will be at least as austere as they were during the last two world wars. He just goes on. The author of a 12-volume A Study of History, and that's not going to be tedious to read, predicted that ruthless authoritarian governments will have to impose a regimented way of life to conserve resources, free enterprise will die, and jobs like stockbrokers and real estate developers will disappear. But Toynbee said the loss of affluence could be a blessing in disguise, leading to a purer life like that of the early Christian monks. A society that is declining materially may be ascending spiritually. This is in 1974. He said it was all going to come to an end, but I think he was off. Well, we did find a nice little ad at A&P on this day. Grapefruit, Indian River, red or white, 10 for 98 cents. Boy, it's cheap grapefruit. Florida oranges, and it says good for eating or squeezing, 10 for 59 cents. And they seem to indicate there it's a recreational event of squeezing oranges. Green cabbage, firm, solid heads for 12 cents a pound. Well, you want them firm and solid, right? Green beans, fresh, firm, and crisp, 38 cents. Who writes this copy? Ocean perch, $3.89 for a 5-pound box. Sausage meat, 79 cents. It's very utilitarian. Franks for 99 cents. We have some more in that ad. Smucker's marmalade, 49 cents. Does anybody eat marmalade anymore? Do they even sell it? You could go after that, though. I think you're supposed to go out and get fast food after you go grocery shopping. Family special, good meal, good deal, good time. Have a barrel of fun every Monday and Tuesday. 12 pieces of finger-licking good chicken. 12 pieces of finger-licking chicken. A pint each of coleslaw, potatoes and gravy, and 6 rolls. Count them. They don't give you 6 rolls anymore, do they? On the top of the bucket of chicken, don't they just chuck a couple on top? Mondays and Tuesdays, $4.99. Kentucky Fried Chicken, available at all Kentucky Fried Chicken stores in Maine. Paired puffins are biding their time at sea. It's a story out of Machias Seal Harbor. Lightkeeper Jack Russell, the Birdman of Machias Seal Island, reported to the Bangor Daily News on Easter Sunday that the water surrounding the 6-acre island is covered with puffins. Early in April each spring, these comical little seabirds with red, yellow, and blue striped beaks form a raft of birds around the island as they pair off and mate. Suddenly, at what seems to them the appropriate time, like clockwork, the puffins will take to the air in a huge cloud and land on the island to lay their single white eggs and raise their young. The landing traditionally takes place on April 14th. However, the puffins chose not to land on the island during Easter Sunday this year, but are expected to come ashore on Monday. Russell and his wife Rita reported also that they have a new resident on the island, a Canadian goose. The bird has been living on the small island for 2 weeks. Bird watchers will be interested to know that a winter storm has demolished one of two blinds on the island, the one near the Whistle House. Because the birds will be nesting during the next few weeks, Russell feels that to erect a replacement blind this season will be out of the question. He said such a burst of activity would scare the birds off their eggs and interrupt the repopulation process. Okay, off to the all-important crime news. 2 stolen vans were found in Rockport, 1974, April 15th. 2 stolen vans, one from Rockland, one from Camden, were recovered here by police Saturday night and Sunday morning. Police Chief Forrest Doucette, some people say Doucette, said a 1963 van owned by Charles Aiken, a resident of the Thorndike Hotel, Rockland, was discovered south of the Mount View Apple stand on US 1 over an embankment. The vehicle, which had been stolen from the hotel parking lot, was undamaged. Another van, which police said had been stolen from the home of James Sharp of Camden, was discovered down an embankment on Mill Street on Main 90. The van was a total wreck, police said. There were no signs of anyone being injured in the crash. The investigation was made by Patrolman Ronald Weaver, with State Trooper James Young assisting. We love those old-fashioned crime stories. The driver of a 1970 car which rolled over an estimated 5 times after going out of control on Route 90 Friday night escaped serious injuries. Chief Forrest Doucette said that Gary Mills, 18, of Glen Cove, Rockport, was pulled from his burning vehicle in a dazed condition by a passerby following the spectacular crash and taken to Camden Community Hospital in Camden. Doucette said Mills was checked over and treated for bumps and bruises and released. He'd been traveling east on Route 90 when he lost control and traveled a considerable distance into a field. The vehicle caught fire twice, and each time was extinguished by passerby with small extinguishers. When the police arrived, the fire department was called to the scene to stand by. Valued at about $1,600, the vehicle was destroyed. 5 times it rolled over, and he just had bumps and bruises. The nighttime police beat, Bangor's finest, had a few problems hanging on to things this weekend. Officers Jim Owens and Quentin Goodall got into quite a tussle with a young man from Madawaska late Friday night on Main Street near the Bangor house. When they tried to arrest the lad for disorderly conduct, the Madawaska man decided to give the officers a close-up look at his fist and the pavement. During the fracas, Goodall lost his tie clasp, and so did Owens along with his tie. Luckily, a passing Good Samaritan helped the 2 boys in blue out of their dilemma by imposing a bear hug on the mischievous Madawaskan. Goodall escorted the wayward lad to the police, where he was booked for the disorderly conduct along with resisting arrest and assault and battery on a police officer. In the meantime, Owen took a breather down at the central fire station where oxygen was administered. Other news, a young man notified police early Saturday morning that a car had struck his vehicle while he was on Court Street and left the scene. Police later apprehended the car and driver on Kunduskeg Avenue and arrested the man for operating while under the influence of intoxicating liquors. A housebreak was reported at 880 Ohio Street. That kind of thing still goes on today. The house was vacant, but apparently someone took some pipe attachments and damaged the bathroom. 3 parking meters and posts were found in a parking lot downtown Saturday morning. Sounds like where you'd expect to find them. A brake was discovered at Engineer's Kitchen on Central Street, but unknown if anything was missing. And a girl's 26-inch green bike was brought into the station Saturday afternoon. The owner can claim it there. "Oh, I'm here to pick up my bike." "Okay, can you identify?" "Yes, it's green." Boy, they gave all their clues away, didn't they? On Saturday, about 8:50 a.m., the station received a call from a Kunduskeg Avenue resident reporting he had captured 2 large dogs a husky and a shepherd that had been roving around the area lately. They're probably two wolves, and you didn't know that. The dispatcher pledged to send the dog catcher to the scene. However, at 9:30 a.m., the man called and said the dogs had made a getaway, not to bother with the dog catcher. At 10:18, the dispatcher received another call from the man saying the dogs were back and tied up again. The dog catcher was finally dispatched, and that was the last entry on the police blotter concerning the roving canines. And then the story in the paper says, "I wonder what happened." Well, a local restaurateur reported his Pekingese dog had been lost, and a woman called, said she'd lost her glasses near Sears and Rubbish. There was a break at 5 Downeast Circle, and the area was ransacked, but nothing was missing. An employee at Bill's restaurant called police Sunday morning, said that he'd taken a tan terrier home that had been hanging around the place all day. If you're missing a tan terrier, call the Bangor police. They'll put you in touch with the man. You could get a dog and a bike out of this little trip to the police. We had, we'll look at we had a couple of albums that were on sale at Kmart. Partridge Family album, The Glory of Love, Eddie Arnold. Steppenwolf 7, he only had one hit. He just released it 7 times. No, he had another one here for ladies only, Steppenwolf on 8-track. That was $2.88. Live Cream, Volume 2, Friends from Elton John, that's on 8-track. Fabulous Broadway from Arthur Fiedler, that was $2.88. Full Circle, The Doors, and Hot Pants from James Brown. Stephen Stills had a single release, and Ginger Baker at his best. Now, would he put out an 8-track that was Ginger Baker at his worst? Sounds like something Frank Norwood would do. The Holiday Inn of Ellsworth, 2 sirloin steak dinners served family style, $6.95. Now, I picture that like they would just plop down 2 sirloin steaks on a platter in front of everybody in the middle of the table. That's family style, but maybe. Bradford House, Grant City, all you can eat tender fried liver every Monday, $1.79. Oh my God. Including mashed potatoes, buttered vegetable roll, and butter. Tonight in the Keg Lounge, Third Movement. Sounds like a great name for a band or a laxative. Stable Inn, that was in Brewer, Maine, featuring Mickey Mosley and Tom Jones, contemporary jazz. Hi, I'm in a band called Third Movement. Let's see. The Great Gatsby was playing at the theaters. Robert Redford and Mia Farrow. I don't know if that was before or after Frank Sinatra. Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn. I don't think you could show that today. Anything else? Oh, there was the TV selections for this day, 1974. CBS Gunsmoke. Matt's Love Story. And it says it's a repeat. Marshall Dillon is ambushed and left for dead, only to be rescued and nursed by a beautiful widow. They used to just crank those out, didn't they? Any other movies? Winter Kill, the Monday night movie, a Monday night, 9 p.m. Who stays up that late? Andy Griffith turns up as a chief of police in a mountain resort area in this pilot film for a series. It offers a pretty sound murder yarn with a killer on the loose and a guest star lineup of victims and suspects. Well, we're running a little bit long here. I better speed things up. I'll skip an ad that shows a Zebco fishing combo for $3.97 as seen on TV. All right, this day, 1885, Mark Twain was down visiting General Grant, who was recovering from, well, I guess he had a bunch of illnesses. Mark Twain came down from Hartford and reports the general's much better than he's been for a week, and for the first time seems to show a marked progression. Dr. Schrader denied that General Grant was continually under the influence of morphine. He said only the smallest doses were given the general, and that was but once every 24 hours. General Grant, Dr. Shady said, is taking nourishment better now than for some time past. His throat still gives him some pain, and he has therefore been forbidden to talk. General writes little notes to Fred Grant and others in the sick room, to signify his desire without talking. This morning, when it was suggested he should take some nourishment, the general took up his pencil and wrote, "Don't you think it would be better to wait until my throat feels better?" Dr. Schrady, with his usual good humor, suggested that the order was not good without the general's signature. General Grant quietly took the note and attached his name in a remarkably firm manner. General Grant was ailing. The local blurb news: the boys are playing baseball. The water rises each day over the dam. The Advance Circus agent is due early next month in Lewiston. The Eastern Steamboat Company have run the first boats from Bath to Boothbay. The mail over Clouds route failed to connect with the train Wednesday morning from Auburn. That used to make news when the mail didn't get through. The temperature rose to 51 degrees above zero on Tuesday afternoon. It was 15 degrees above zero at sunrise on Wednesday. Mr. H.M. Milliken of Auburn broke a cord in his leg and has been obliged to return home to Portland. Crews of the Union Water Power Company are cutting out booms, preparing for the rush of the ice and waters. The city pumps, this is Auburn, pumped 3 million gallons less of water last week than the week before. The water takers are letting up a little. Must have been for the mills. Mr. Edward Rugen of Woodstock, New Brunswick, was passing several days with Lewiston friends. He reports 5 feet of snow in the streets of Woodstock, New Brunswick, when he left home last week, and this is in April. Charles Greenwood has taken the contract to steam, heat, and plumb the office and buildings of the Farmington Chronicle. Mr. Greenwood is also plumbing the Congregational Parsonage in this city. "These are the best and surest signs of spring," said the man in the fish market on Wednesday as he stood at the marble slab cleaning a shad. They were the first of the season and retailed at 25 cents to 35 cents each. Seems like an expensive fish for back then. So that story again, Bridgewater, Maine. There's yet about 4.5 feet of snow and farmers are wishing for rain. The roads are in bad condition and hauling is about done. It's expected there'll be large floods when the rain does come. G.W. Collins has engaged a machinist from Bangor to repair the engine and boiler in his mill. He expects to have it running again in a short time. I like the little gossip pieces here. We'll see if there's anything else there of interest. Mrs. J.K. Nelson was taken to the Maine asylum by her friends March 31st. The physician gives no hope of her recovery. Always the optimist. What else? 1,200 people were at the Calais rink on Tuesday evening to see the 3-mile race on rollerblades between Skinner of Boston and Saunders of St. John. Saunders led for 2 miles when he was passed by Skinner on the third, the latter winning by 2 feet. Time was 10 minutes and 10 seconds. Rollerblading real popular. Miss Lena Connell and Miss Faye Harmon skated for the championship of the state and a gold medal at the Calais roller rink on Saturday, Saturday 11th instance, I think it says. The audience was equally divided as to who should have the medal, and the judges awarded it to Miss Harmon. Fully 2,000 people attended this rollerblading championship. Okay, as we're winding things down here, it's time for our little animal of the moment here. I actually heard them the other morning for the first time this spring. It's finally starting to warm up enough. The spring peepers, they're named for their signature high-pitched calls. They're native to eastern North America, can be found from Manitoba, Canada, all the way to Florida. It's a woodland species that lives in areas with heavy plant growth near ponds, streams, or swamps. A little peeper. They're gray, tan, or light brown in color with a light belly. They can be identified by a dark X on their back and bands on the legs. The toes have flat pads that secrete a mucus which acts as an adhesive to aid in climbing. An adult is between 3/4 and 1 1/4 inch in length. The males can be distinguished from females by examining the throats. Only the males have dark wrinkles. Little spring peepers. They eat spiders, ants, pill bugs, or moth and butterfly larvae and are the primary source of food for adult peepers. The larvae feed on algae while developing in the water. We had another thing we wanted to read on this. The Latin name is Pseudocris crucifer. It's mostly a creature of the eastern U.S. And in Maine, it's called the northern spring peeper. It's a species we find here. Note that you might not find one at all because they're so small and reclusive, but they'll gladly share their bell-like call with you hour after hour for many weeks from March into June. Spring peepers are the distinctive members of a group known as chorus frogs. So we've already noted they're about 1 inch in length, and the female's about 40% larger. They have smooth skin. They also have a partial ability to change color to blend into their wetland environment. Isn't that something? Many of the peepers get their name from that cross-shaped figure on their backs. That's the source of the name crucifer, the cross-bearer. Like most amphibians, the toes are equipped with special flat pads that provide wonderful gripping ability so the animal can climb on all surfaces. Peepers prefer to remain among vegetation along the water's edge, but they are capable of swimming thanks to their webbed hind feet. They hibernate in the winter, and then they find their resting spots in soft mud, leaf litter, rotten logs, or holes in the ground. Their metabolism drops to a minimal level of activity, allowing the creatures to survive months with no food intake. They produce glucose that acts like antifreeze to displace water in their cells, allowing the cells to freeze without damage from ice crystals, and it assists their survival in temperatures down to 20 degrees Fahrenheit. The glucose and glycogen are also used as energy sources to sustain life all winter. When cold weather eases, the peepers have run out of sugar, so they can become active early in the spring, sometimes before ice out. Isn't that a marvelous little creature? The spring peeper, northern peeper. All right, we'll look at the forecast, and then we're going to kick you out the door. Go out there and do something fun today. It's supposed to be nice all day, mostly sunny with a high near 62. Northwest wind 5 to 10 miles an hour, becoming southeast in the afternoon. And let's look ahead a little bit here. For tonight, a 20% chance of showers after 2 a.m., then fog after 5 a.m. For Sunday, patchy fog before 9, otherwise cloudy Sunday with a high near 53, east wind 5 miles per hour. And then looking out for the week, next week, moderating temperatures back to more spring-like 50s for highs, and looks like mostly to partly sunny throughout the week coming up. That is our podcast for today. I hope you and your loved ones enjoy a day that is full of grace, love, and kindness. Until next time, this is Downeast Mike saying, we'll see you. Like a wall that's sitting on my chest, feel the weight of the sun calling me. It's been a long, hard winter. Got 10 months of snow and 2,000 months of hard sledding. Hard sledding. I've been